I am Becky, and welcome to Buzzing About Romance Happy Hour. I am super excited that this evening, on a rare Monday happy hour, we are joined by author JD Hollyfield. Welcome to Happy Hour.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Um, I am super excited to get to chat with you about your latest release that just came out today, correct?
Yes, today's the big day.
Um, this is Power. It's available wide, you guys. You can find it whatever retailer you buy your books. Um, I have to say, friend, you can write a grumpy hero.
Thank you.
Like, you got the good balance between grump and asshole. Like we made a Venn diagram
Oh,
that
fantastic.
like asshole and grumpy and where it intersects and who's in, like in the middle is just assholes or anti-heroes. I think we put anti-heroes in the middle. Um,
Amazing.
but yeah, he's like super grouchy. So I'm excited for everybody to get to know him. And then Faye is like the perfect little Miss Ray of Sunshine, isn't she?
She kind of sees situations and she's just like kind of like a screw it, I'm gonna go for it kind of girl. And sometimes when I write these characters, I'm always like, man, I wish I could just be more like them, just to be more like, meh, screw it, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, where it's like, realities wise, you're like pulling your hair out, being like, I can't do this. Whereas when you write these like carefree characters, they're like, yeah, my life just exploded in front of me. Want to go drinking tonight?
Right. Right. So like I said, tonight we are celebrating JD Hollyfield and her latest release of Power. Um, in the description of this video, you can find Jessica's bio and all the places where you can like, follow, and connect with her. Um, you can ask any questions in the chat, and we will get to them and do our best to answer them. So our traditional way here on Happy Hour is to start off with the question of, what are you drinking tonight? But it's Monday, so
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay. So I'm actually it is since it is release day, I do get my Pinot Noir. So I
nice.
the Pinot Noir. I threw dinner at my kids' faces and I'm like, eat, goodbye. I love you. I got things to do. And so and I'm gonna enjoy my glass of wine. I'm gonna chitty chat it up with you guys. I get to
Perfect.
avoid all things kids right now, so it's nice.
Now, do you have release day rituals?
It's funny because I like to release on a Monday and it's always grocery shopping day. So I'm always like, today's going to be a good day. Things are going to go great. I'm in the grocery store and I'm putting all my dumb shit in my cart and be like, oh, again, buying chips for the kids. So basically, I guess I think that's my ritual. I try and just do things to keep busy because release days are stressful, but then they're not stressful. It's just everything kind of goes kind of day. But yeah, I sometimes I wonder why I actually do Mondays because they're always stressful in general because it's like the start of the week, getting the kids off, everybody needs things, and then I'm like, let's throw a release date on top of everything. So yeah, grocery shopping,
So
the big one.
that's so funny that you're like, I do Mondays and I grocery shop on Mondays, but it's kind of probably a nice break. Like you get the first wave of kids to school, started, and then you go do your grocery shopping and then, have time to
Yeah,
process and be ready to dive into whatever the rest of the
yeah,
day brings.
yeah. So I got up early this morning. I probably got up around 5, and I did like my pre-morning like release stuff. So I got that out of the way. And then so I had a little bit of time to like downtime, and I really wanted to sit down and watch the Love is Blind reunion because I didn't get to watch it last night like the rest of the freaking world. But I didn't turn it on because it never came on.
So
So
here, okay, wait, I have to say, this is so
let's
funny that you bring this up.
talk about Love is Blind all the time, the
We
whole
can,
time.
actually, we can, because here's the funny thing. So I have to be very honest. I've only watched one episode, and it was one episode of season 4. And we had book club
Of the
because
entire series of all 4 seasons.
yeah, I've never watched anything. My husband and I were like, I was like, my girls at book club, because Buzzing About Romance has a book club. And I was like, girls at book club are constantly talking about this. I feel like we should watch this. And maybe like we have some extra podcast exclusive stuff that we do for our Patreon members. And I'm like, we could do like a Love is Blind recap and like our feels on it and stuff like that.
And baby,
I watched episode 1 and I was like, what is this? Like, I
I
felt
know.
like all of my 90s anxiety was like in that.
So I will tell you that you have to actually like you have to go to season 1 because in any reality show the first season is always the best season because it's such a shit show, not like any other season is not, but it's more like realistic, right? Because people don't know what they're doing and they actually like they go into these things, going for it. And I have to say, when I started watching season 4, I'm like, this is just so much of a show now. Like people like know what to expect. They know what they got to do. And it kind of seemed like everybody was just racing to find partners to stay on the show longer, right? Because more
Right.
publicity. And it wasn't as authentic as season 1. I mean, they're all just train wrecks, and it's you just have to watch it. But um,
But yeah,
yeah,
I'm confused. Like, how did Netflix not think that okay, so here's my first question. Has Netflix ever done a live stream on their
once
platform?
they did once. It was like a Kid Rock comedy show or something like that, or it was a comedian. I think it was Kid Rock, and
Oh,
it
was it
was
Chris Rock? Did Chris
Chris
Rock?
Rock. That's what. And it was like one of the highest grossed watched shows, whatever. So they were anticipating this to be a pretty big deal. So I mean, when it just, I'll tell you what, when I couldn't get in, I was getting really, really like angry. I mean, I was like, I'm going upstairs. You guys stay down here. I'm watching this. I'm ready. I got I was just ready. And then, and I couldn't figure out what was happening. I thought it was mine. So I started switching TVs. I'm like, I'm a dumbass that's going from TV to TV, being like, my goddamn internet or something like that. So thank God I went to Twitter because like Twitter will tell you anything with like the fastest. And I'll tell you what, I about peed my pants listening to like reading all of these comments about people just being like, "Oh my god, trying to sign on to this Love and Blind reunion is about as big as a train wreck as the whole show." I mean, people were just commenting, and it was amazing. But I still can't watch it. I actually got onto TikTok because everybody and their mothers were live streaming it, and so that's how I ended up seeing as much as I did see. It probably like what they say. I heard somebody say today it was like 2 hours long, but they only they had to like cut it down eventually, and it was only like an hour and 15 minutes. So I
Yeah.
watched some of it through the live feed because that's desperation. But
That's commitment to your
it
show.
is, I needed to know. I needed to know who stayed.
Oh my god. It's so funny cuz I told you earlier today was a travel day for me, so I was not at my computer, lots of mobile phone and then last thing I said to my children before we left, make sure your devices are charged because I'm not giving you my phone. On the way home, so from 3:30 until we got home, my phone was being shared in the
Yep.
back seat for them to
Oh
listen
yeah,
to music.
I know
But
how that.
um so I couldn't check email or anything, but the one thing I did come across was some unhappy viewers with Vanessa Lachey. Like
Oh
they're
yes,
calling for her head, they want her off the show, and I'm like, "Okay, people." I
yeah.
mean,
Hoping because I mean, last night my entire TikTok was all like memes and people making fun of how Netflix just totally shit the bed. And today I was hoping because it's again, like I said, it's still not on my Netflix. I can't even watch it yet. But it's it's all about Vanessa, and I'm like, just give me some more like spoilers, whatever. And everybody's just, I mean, yeah,
so
I would not
funny.
today.
Yeah, Gretchen said in the chat that she couldn't watch last night and has been avoiding social media all day so she can be surprised. So,
Oh, really? Okay, so then I won't say anything. Thank God, because I think I would have said spoilers. So because I do. But so like literally, like I have this group chat with my girlfriends and they can't watch it either and they're getting all mad. And I'm like, okay, so none of us like we're just kind of like we're at like a standstill with this conversation because none of us can talk about it because none of us can get in and watch it.
that's so funny. Um Yeah, so one of my contributors on the blog and on the podcast, Jenny, she's been telling me I have to go back and watch season 1 with Lauren.
You do. I'm telling you, you do. Like you, you get a better idea of like the show watching season one, and again, the authenticity of it is so much better than like from what it is in season four. Because I was like, this is just so scripted at this point, and you're just like, you hate when you like see it. I mean, TV is reality
Right.
TV. You love to see like when it really starts off when people have absolutely no idea what they're doing. So there is some sort of like realistic like
Sure.
feel to it. Um,
I've watched
but yeah.
all like 24 seasons of the Survivor show. So, like, I love me some reality TV. I grew up on, well, not grew up, but college was The Real World and Road Rules.
Oh,
I watched all those.
still
So,
watch those. We still watch those.
I don't watch as much TV now. Um like viewing for me is hit or miss. I'm very sporadic in my viewing these days, but
Yeah,
it's fine. It's
nice.
fine. But I'm probably gonna have to try to give Love Is Blind another chance.
You do.
Um, so let's talk a little bit about you as a romance author
Okay.
and not just Love Is Blind fanatic.
I mean,
Um, so why romance?
why romance? So, it's funny to say, I was not a big reader when I was growing up. I didn't read a lot when I was younger, and I was a total cliff notes type of person, right? Which is really funny to say now to look at where I'm at now, but um my sister was an advocate to push Twilight on me. And I'm like, no, leave me alone. She's like, you just read this book. I'm like, no, I really don't have to read this book. And she's like, no, you have to read this book. I'm like, yeah, not reading this book. And she bought me the book for Christmas. And I'm like, what the hell? I asked for something else. Why do I have this book? And so I was like, fine, I'll read it. I sat down with this stupid book. I opened it. I read the first book in a matter of like 7 seconds. I read the second book in 3 seconds. I mean, I flipped through this series. I'm not even kidding you. I was reading while I was driving, working, pooping. I mean, I could not stop reading this series. I'm like, this is amazing. Like the angst. I was like, oh my God, I love this. And so once I was finished with it, I was like, I need more. I need more. And so I just started plowing through romance books. I mean,
Yeah,
I'd read like between 3 and 4 a week. And that's a lot considering this was when I was reading paperbacks. I
right?
wasn't reading Kindle. So this was like pre like ebooks and stuff like that.
Well, it was
And
more intentional reading because you had to have the paperbacks on hand.
yes,
So it
yes. And
wasn't this, let's scroll a website and I'll pick this ebook to read. This was like,
yeah.
yeah,
And I just did so much romance reading that all of a sudden it just like I'm not even like the story just started like playing out in my head. And I was like, it kept going and going and going. And it kept going in my head. And so finally one day I said, you know what? I'm just gonna write it down. And you know what? Maybe I'll write a book. Maybe this is gonna be a bucket list item. One person's gonna buy it, and it's probably gonna be my mother. And I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna do something else in my life. And I wrote it, and I found some just cover designer in the middle of nowhere. I don't even think I think she was like an international cover designer. And this was back in 2000 like 13, 14. So this was a long time ago. And I knew nothing about the industry. I got onto Goodreads, figured out, started like joining some groups. And long story short, I just submitted it. I said, oh, okay, that's done. What else do I do now? Should I go, you know, I think the next thing on my list was like go to like a real life ball because I loved all that stuff.
right.
And then all of a sudden, another story started playing in my head. And so I wrote that one. And then it just kind of kept going. Like I kept reading and I kept getting these ideas. And it's like this like wheel that's been cranking ever since.
I love that. I love that. And I love that Twilight was kind of your gateway and then you just consumed as much romance as you could. Um,
Yeah.
I was your sister. I was a lifelong reader and I was a book pusher even, in my 20s. I, would go to college and sit on campus and I'd be reading and someone say, "Oh, what are you reading?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm reading this. But here I have this other book. You should read this one."
Yeah.
Um, and I love romance. It's the best. It's the best.
Yeah. And it's funny when I started reading romance. So it wasn't as as big back when I started reading it. And it was, to the point where I'm reading these, paperbacks. Linda Howard was like my go-to. I don't know if you've ever heard of
Yeah.
her,
Yeah.
but she like has these covers like, when you read books, you would literally have to find things to cover the covers because you're like, God forbid somebody sees me reading a
See,
cover.
and I was
That
the opposite. I've been reading romance since 1991. I'm older than I look, just so we're clear. um, and I loved the clinch covers. Like
I,
my biggest problem was so in the 90s and early 2000s and really until the dawning of the ebook, we would get the hardback first.
oh,
And then you had to wait anywhere from 12 to 18 months to get the mass paperback. So, like, I grew up reading the Linda Howards, the Jude Devereaux, the Joanna
oh,
Lindsays.
oh. So, um, it's funny, and I appreciate you that you said this because a lot of people don't know who Linda Howard is.
Yeah.
And who was it? Cry No More. Does that
Okay.
sound familiar? Linda Howard? It was the first one I wrote or read, and I it was honestly like one of the first books that I read that I like cried in. It was so emotional for me, and I want to say that I read it and I didn't even have kids yet. Maybe did I have kids? I think I had kids. No, I did have kids. Um, but it was like this storyline about this. Oh God, now I really don't remember too much of it.
Cry No More, it was from 2003.
Oh, it just the angst, the just emotional of it. It, if I remember correctly, she loses a child, like gets kidnapped, and she swears that it's not like he's not dead or whatever. And she hires this guy to help her find the boy. But of course, the guy is like muscles, beautiful, this and that. And he's angry and grumpy, and it's just he goes through this like journey with her, and like I don't even. Oh, I just remember just bawling my eyes out. It was just the first book I've ever read that like made me have such emotion to something, and it was like will forever stay with me. And I just these there's just so many like old school authors like there out there that people like should start go back and read, right?
I agree. We did a group read recently because a lot of people in our community who especially love romantic suspense had never read Nora Roberts. And I'm like,
Uh,
well, she's not even hard romance, you guys. What do you mean you've never read her? Like,
yeah.
those are much more acceptable than reading. And it's funny because I started my romance journey. Like, my mother had gone to college with Jude Devereaux, and so she always had books that she would
I have
send my
from
mom.
her too. Yeah.
And so I started with the book The Conquest, and when I look back on that book, and because it's out of print now, but when I look back on it and what that story was about, it was kind of it was a it was a medieval romance, and the heroine disguised herself as a page boy for the knight. And the knight was having attraction and feelings towards the page boy who was really a girl in disguise. It's just bonkers. It's just bonkers
I
because,
think,
like,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, and it's funny to read some of the books in the 70s and the 80s where you can see some of the trends of culture. Like Joanna
Yeah.
Lindsay in the early 80s wrote a book that had a lot to do with aphrodisiacs. Book has zero consent in it, like not consent.
Really.
Oh yeah,
It's
it's
considered like a very mild author too, romance author.
she truly wrote the bodice rippers though. She wrote the bodice rippers of the 70s and 80s and her covers are scandalous, but I eat them up. We just did a recent um our episode that just dropped yesterday was all about the history of covers.
Oh my God, I need to get on this book club.
Yeah,
I
I
need.
well, you can listen to the podcast wherever you get podcasts, and the latest episode is all about covers because I called it the golden age of clinch because I love a good old clinch cover. Like But we also talked about the man chest because you have a very nice, Power has a beautiful man cover.
You know, it's funny because I didn't start getting into custom covers until I want to say last year. My first one was with a book called Worth the Chase. Um, but I've fallen in love. They always say, once you start, you can't go back. And it's true because I'm a huge fan of Wonder, and that's where I get covers from.
Yes.
And they'll post something and I'll just see it. I'll be like, mine. And it is like a battle zone to like get these images because they're just so just I don't know, like pretty is not the word,
No,
but like
nope, they are because
but
honestly,
something you're like, that's him, he's mine, right? So like when you write a story, I always wrote a story and then I'd go for the cover. That was always my thing. I'd write it first and wait till it's summer, and then I'd go into the deep dark web trying to find a stock photo for the cover and what would fit. Because I am a believer that your cover needs to match your story. And I've been just banking with Wonder lately because I see these images and I'm like, that's him. Oh my God. Like I wrote the story, like that's him. So when I found this model, there's actually a bunch of them that just were so perfect, but they were going like hotcakes. So, but I love the one that I ended up with.
it's a great cover. And actually, it's funny you say that because I think in that episode I said if Wander's on it, I'm buying it. Like
I know.
he
A bucket list of mine is to write a book and have Wonder on the cover and Andrew on a cover.
Okay, I'm there for it. If Wander's on it, I said in the episode, if Wander's on it, I'm reading it. Because it's funny, because currently I'm in what I like to call my daddy age.
There you go.
Like, I'm really getting into the age gap and looking for the daddy romances.
There-
And he's had a series, like three in the last couple weeks or months, that have come out that he's been on the cover. And I'm like,
yeah.
daddy, he's mine. But you wrote a daddy duet that was freaking hot.
Oh, thank you.
Um, I thoroughly enjoyed that duet,
Thank
and we'll be
you.
talking about that on our daddy episode coming soon. Um, okay, Susie wants to know what's your favorite trope? It could be to
Um,
read or to write.
okay, so it's really funny. I started doing a lot of like romantic comedies, and it's because I just that's who I am. I feel like a lot of like who I am personally shows in females that I write just because I feel like I kind of shine through. But I love romantic suspense. I will go ahead and write a rom-com. And the second I'm done writing it, I need to go something like dark and gritty and like just like that is not like I don't want you to I don't want to hear a single joke in this book. Like I want you to like wham bam like throw my hair and like do naughty things because like it's sometimes it's a lot to write a rom-com.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's a lot to write dark because you have to like go into like that certain like place too. But lately I have been jamming on what I like to call full package romance because no matter how hard I try, I cannot take the humor out of my writing. And I've tried. I've started writing and all of a sudden they're like da 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 and I'm like, "No, take that witty comment back." So, in my full package romance, you have everything from the humor, the suspense, you'll have your steam happily ever after. So it really has everything that you're looking for in a book. Um, so I think that I would say that that would be my jam.
Yeah. You this book, so Susie then follows up with where should someone start reading your books? And actually, so I had read this daddy duet that you wrote. And I read something else. Oh goodness. They're kind of like frat boys. It's a little more new adult.
Oh, uh, the this Elite Seven.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I read one of those. They were just a little too frat boy for me. Like, holy crap, are you guys dumb? Because seriously.
Oh, the Elite Seven is a group of seven authors, and it was the seven sins. So, I have the second book in the series called Pride.
Yes, that
Uh,
is the one I read.
yeah. And I would say I always like to say Chicks Man. And this is why. Because Chicks Man is definitely one of those full package romance where you just get everything from the humor, the steam, the suspense. And there's 3 books right now in the series. They are all standalones. They are written to read um, by each other. But the cool thing about it is, if when you start with Chicks Man, you get Levi and Hannah. I have to remember the names. And throughout the next 2 books, you watch them grow, right? And so it's kind of like their story ends in book 1, but you still kind of get to see them like play out. And book 2 is worth the chase. Basically, and book 3 is Enemies with Benefits. It is a group of guys. They're all best
Okay, I
friends.
read Enemies with Benefits. I'm pretty sure I read Enemies with Benefits.
Yeah, with Ben.
And they're best friends.
Yes.
Yes, that's the one I
Yes.
read.
I
Uh,
usually don't do series because I can't, like, my attention span won't last long enough.
well, I will say Power is a great place to start. This is a standalone book. There isn't, I don't feel, I mean, I guess you kind of could write another book in this as a series if you wanted to.
I will tell you, I will tell you, and I've not said anything about this yet. This is the first time I'm saying this out loud. I am halfway done. Have you with Fate with Mindy's book?
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. And you know what? I'll tell you what, I never plan on writing her story. So for anybody that hasn't read it, Mindy is a side character. She is Faye's best friend in Power. And I never planned on writing this story. This was going to be a complete standalone, but I had to write an anthology. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to write this about? I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And somebody came up to me and said, oh my God, you should write Mindy's book. And I'm like, blah, 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 what should I write about? And so I kind of just sat down. I started writing it only to be like, oh, I'll just throw her in a quick anthology. And now I'm like almost like 40,000 words into this. And I'm like, I am like this. This is going good. So it's because my next release was supposed to be um, after Enemies with Benefits. There's a side character. His name is Brady. He works with Ben. That's what's supposed to be my next book. And now I think it's actually going to be Mindy's book because it's just like the words are just flying out. So, but it can also be read as a standalone too. So it's not that.
Susie asks, did you write for the Descent anthology?
Yes. What did I put in there?
Well, that's okay. I think Susie has that. She likes to write or read anthologies to catch up with authors and then double check, like just, it's because
Yes.
anthologies are a
So
great way.
what did I put in Descent? Oh, I'm trying to think.
It's okay.
Oh, the thing. This is how I look at anthologies. Whatever I write, I always have the intentions of writing their full novels because I feel like it's just, it's my way of saying I'm not just, it gets me started on a project and to know that like to finish it.
Yeah.
Um, oh my God, you know what yeah, I think I did Brady's book. I did the beginning of Brady's book.
Okay.
So if you guys have read Enemies with Benefits, this is where you meet Brady. He's a side character and he's a firefighter that works with Ben.
Yes.
I wrote the start of that one. So again, yes, I wrote that with the intention of this being my next book. And then I got sidetracked. And then I had to write one for the Wild and Windy anthology, and it's called My Boyfriend's Daddy.
Um, I'm okay with this title. I am super okay with this.
I want to start like every once in a while I get this itch to do like a taboo. It's not like my normal go-to. Like I'm not competing with like that trope and all those others because
Sure.
they know how, right? But sometimes I'm just like, I just want to
It's a
cross the line a little bit.
it's kind of
So
like getting a scuff on a shoe. You just want to see what happens.
yes,
What's the
yes,
inspiration there?
I wrote it, and it's going to be in the Wild and Windy, and it's basically the title. It says it most. It's My Boyfriend's Daddy. And I'm actually gonna try and like do like how I did like a little bit of a duet with Bad Daddy and Sweet Little Lies. And so the next book, I can't figure out how to title it, so I can't tell you. But basically obviously book one is the girlfriend and the boyfriend, but they break up, so there's no cheating. So don't worry. Gets with the daddy. And then the second book is going to be the girlfriend's sister that the ex-boyfriend messes with. So it's like a whole like family love triangle. And it sounds really good in my head.
No, it sounds really good to
But
me. So
paper.
putting it to paper could be hard.
Yes.
What's your favorite part of writing? Do you like doing characterizations, plots, dialogue? Because that was something that was phenomenal in Power. The dialogue, the banter between all of these characters was so well done. Like, you can tie me into a book just on dialogue, and you did
Thank
it
you.
so well.
Um, it's funny that you say that because sometimes when I'm writing and I feel like I'm like my entire book is just dialogue. I just start writing screenplays because I need to add more like internal thought process. And so like even when I was like writing today, I was like, I need to add internal thoughts because I'm just like dialogue, dialogue, dialogue. But it's just me having like these like conversations in my head and I'm writing. So I guess I would say dialogue. I'm not a plotter. I honestly, if I get an idea in my head, I'll sit down and I'll write. And I will get probably where I am right now, which is about close to 40K. And then like my it just kind of like stops. And that's where I have to sit down and start plotting because I'm like, okay, where do I go from here? Because I'll just write until my brain just stops and be like, well, that's all I have for you. So that's when I have to then pull back and be like, okay, well, what happens now? Like what's gonna happen here? What's gonna happen there? Um, with like Power, I wrote it in sections. And then when I tried putting it together, it didn't fit. And so I had to rewrite Power. And originally, I wrote it because I wanted it to be a taboo. And I wanted him to be 45 and I wanted her to be young. And when I started writing it, the basis of like the issues, I don't want to give any spoilers, but the basis, like the issues with like the family and the company, it just wasn't working because, like, how do you have a 45-year-old man like trapped in this issues with,
With his
whatever?
dad, yeah.
Yeah, it just didn't like flow. But like in my head originally, I was like, oh my God, I want this taboo. Cause you want like the office romance, whatever.
Right.
And it didn't work. And so I had to adjust everything and just all their ages. So I took Theo from being 45 to, and then I tried to do 35, and then that didn't work. So then we had to bump it down again. And I made him 29. So he turned, because turns 30 in the book. So it was a huge transition for me. And I kept having, I don't know, I didn't want her to be too old because then I'm like, well, why is she a deadbeat? Why she's doing this at this age, right? So
Right.
like, that was like, if anything, it was my biggest challenge was to like balance out their ages because I really wanted it to be taboo in the beginning and it just wasn't working.
Well, and Faye is kind of a bit of a hot mess, but she's
Right.
also this free spirit full of like positivity a little bit. And like, so the premise of the book is was a chef. She lost her job. Um, she's moved home with her parents, and her mother secures her a job interview at this corporate office. And her mother's like, "You'll be fine. It'll be great." And she's like, "Cheese and rice, I don't even know what I'm doing here." And she just goes for it. And like, he's going to fire her. Like, he's not going to even hire her, but she's just kind of like, he has to hire her because she's just so like,
Yeah, like she's like this like enigma and like that walks into his life and he's just like, it's like the what do they say like a fly to a flame? Is that the thing?
yeah, yeah.
And he knows that she's totally should not be where she is, but he just can't say no to her.
Well, he can't say no to her, but in reality, Theo is he is a grump. He is a big, giant grouch, and he has some reasons to be grouchy. He situations happened and he had some heartbreak, and then his father's an asshole. Like, but Theo's truly a grump. Like, he's grumpy with reason. He's not just a jerk. Like, he has a reason to be grouchy. And there were a couple of times in the book where I wanted to shake him and be like, dude, just walk away. You're
Yes.
smart. Walk away. You can do whatever you want. Walk away. Um,
Right. And it's funny because, even as a writer, when I read this, sometimes I'm like, oh, you do not have to stay here. You can just end it here. And I'm like, okay. So then I ended at chapter 7, and that's the end of the book. Right. So, because it's like fiction. So you got to keep it going. You have to like keep him like staying in these wrong situations. But like, even sometimes when I'm writing it, I was like, I want to stay in this situation. Right. I'm like, what are you doing? Pull it together.
but I love that. And so honestly, like when a book has me yelling at them or has me like talking back to the characters, because anybody who listens to the podcast probably might think that I'm a bit insane, which if you watch or listen to the podcast or watch me when I do stuff, they know I'm insane. But I talk about these characters and the life choices that they make like they are real people.
I believe it.
When I'm like, I get Faye. I understand like how she just kind of goes with it because she's lost herself. And I remember, and I'm like, if people heard me that didn't know what I did, for a living and what I do with this project, they would think I'm insane talking about these fictional characters like they are real people.
Well, it's the same thing. It's like when you read a series and you're done with it and you're like, oh, I wonder what they're doing right now. Like, I wonder what I would be doing with them. Because when I started with Chicks Man, it is a group of like 4 guys, right? So by the time we got to like book 3, even I was so engrossed in all of their lives. I was like, man, I wonder what they're doing tonight. Like, because it's just like you could just get so engrossed in these. And sometimes I'm like, when I write like some of these characters, I'm like, man, dumbass. Like, why are you doing that?
Right.
And you just kind of like want to like, I have a lot of moments where I want to write um additional bonus scenes just because I have to keep playing out certain scenarios in my head and just be like, well, I don't think this is right. So I have to like justify them in this way.
I mean, and there are times that I'll be talking to someone, I'll be like, if this character is real, I would totally call her up and have margaritas with her. Like, she is the type of person I want to hang out with. And then again, you think, are you crazy? What is wrong with you? These people are fictional. In my head, they're
Uh,
real. Um, okay, so Theo has to make this choice in the prologue, and then we realize not until chapter 2 that what choice he made. Was that hard to write? Because, like, chapter, even just from the prologue to chapter 2, I was like, what? Why'd you make that choice? I mean, I know why, because it's a book and we had to keep the story going.
right.
But as the author, do you write that and then second guess, like, don't do it.
So
Wait, do it.
the hardest thing with writing power was to balance out like reality with it, right? So he gets forced into making a decision. And the decision that he makes wasn't difficult for me because I feel like at the age where Theo is, he chose the latter. Like he chose to just say, you know what, I want the power of success. I want, everything that this comes with. So that wasn't hard, but it was hard, like you said, keeping him into this to say, why did he do this for so long? Like, why didn't he just say, screw you guys, I'm out, and again, I think that had a lot to do with, I really, really, really wanted this age gap in a sense. And also just to kind of show that, with so much time that has gone by, that like Theo used to be like this like total like carefree playboy. And from the time that, the prologue ends and the story begins to the time, that gap, just how hard like he's just like, it's like this decision like just turned out to be not what he should have done, and he's so hard and he's so cold, and he's like, he's who he is because he made the wrong decision. He has to live with it, and you know, he's got nothing to look forward to,
Yeah.
like he hates himself. He hates like why he the decisions that he made. Um so I mean, again, yeah, I was like, oh, you should have walked away, but he just gets swept up in this theory that, his father let him believe that these are the things that he needs and he wants.
Right.
And, you know, to a point where like he maybe questions himself. He doesn't know if that's what he needs, what he wants. It's just what he's been groomed to know.
Yeah. So the main tropes in this book, it's an office romance. It's a bit forbidden. Hate to lovers. Grumpy Sunshine. There is some humor in this and a little bit of suspense, and it absolutely ends with an HEA. Um, so writing suspense for you, I think that that's one of the hardest subgenres, tropes to do in a book. And
Oh,
and you did it very well. Like I really, really liked it in this story. Do you think suspense is easy or hard for you? Does it give you like a creative challenge to do it?
you know, I think my answer would be it's not hard. I enjoy it because all of a sudden, like it's like when I said I'll be writing and I'll be like, oh, that's a good one. So like I'm writing Mindy's story right now, and I was like, oh, this suspense, people are gonna be like, what? I mean, or not, they're gonna catch it right away. But my bigger thing is trying not to stay away from any sort of plot twist I've already written before. I think
Oh,
that's a hard because lately I feel like a lot of my books have been a little bit of suspense in them, so I don't want to like kind of like write the same thing over and over.
sure.
But no, I've been really liking writing suspense.
I think it takes a very special author to write suspense and to do it
Oh,
well, and you do a great job. So,
thank you. I appreciate that.
well, anybody who listens to the podcast knows that I'm very picky on my suspense. I won't
Oh,
just read anyone's suspense because here's the problem. When I started reading romantic suspense, I started reading the uh Nora Roberts suspense and then reading, I don't know, countless others, but like Shayla Black had
yeah.
suspense, Lexi Blake has had suspense. So I started reading those and, I was up here with suspense. You got to bring it. And you did. Absolutely empower. You brought it.
I'll tell you what, again, I legit like used to stalk Linda Howard. Like she was, and you know what? You'll probably have you ever read Pamela Claire?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Her eyewitness series.
Oh, I'm telling you, she is amazing. And every time I see her, I'm always like, I wish she would come to like a signing or something like that because like that's who I started all my like suspense on. And I mean, to keep you on the edge like that and just be like, I mean, it's something as stupid as like, who's at the other side of the door, right? But it was like, I mean, she did it with just such perfection. And I don't know. Like, I just,
That's how I feel about Maya Banks, her KGI series, which is
yes,
romantic suspense, but like military
yes,
security force. And
yes.
so that's the place. You got to do if you're going to do a military security force, you got to get me like Maya
Yeah.
Banks level. Like that's what I want. But she's again one of those that, she has some health issues and I'm aware of that, but I I want more stories from her. I loved
No,
her
I
story.
sometimes I think that we need to just take a step back and we need to have a day and that it's you know what? We need to appreciate this person, this person, this person,
Yeah.
this person. A lot of people that are coming into this industry and they probably don't even know who these people are and they just are people that they need to read. Because I mean, I remember some of like my favorite stories, but they're never mentioned anymore because there's so much out there now that like these like and I God forbid they're not classics, but you know what I mean? Like they're
Yeah.
these books that I feel like have like changed my life in regards to reading romance.
Well,
And
I
there's
used to
people
read
that
a well, I used to read a lot of category because that's what my mother had was the Harlequin box, the 220 pages in mass paperback. And a lot of people don't realize is that without category, we wouldn't have novellas or the contemporary romances that we have right now. Um,
yeah,
and so I recently was like, somebody said, "Oh, category," and I said, "Well, haven't you read Brenda Jackson? Because Brenda Jackson and Beverly Jenkins started at the same time. Beverly Jenkins wrote historical, Brenda
yeah,
wrote contemporary category, but you wouldn't have a Kennedy Ryan without a Brenda Jackson and a Beverly Jenkins. Like you needed, and those books are so good. And Brenda Jackson is still writing. Beverly Jenkins is still writing, but we don't
yeah.
talk about their books as much. And I'm like, wait, you
Everybody
guys,
needs like a day where we just like be like, do you remember these people?
yeah.
You know,
Well, and we actually
there's
have started doing that.
out there, but like I feel like it's just we're forgetting like some of like the books that really, really need to be read and really, really need to be talked about.
Well, there's a lot of backlist. There's a lot of
Yeah.
authors that we're forgetting their backlists.
Yeah.
Um, we talk about it a lot with like Sawyer Bennett. Like she really started with Love Swept and she has those Cold Fury. And if you're reading hockey, why are you not reading those or the Kelly Jamesons that are
I'm trying to look.
so much better written?
I I actually have my favorite Sawyer Bennett series here somewhere. It's behind me somewhere, but
What's your
I really
favorite? What's
I
your
can't
favorite?
even now like you
Well,
caught me off.
because so you might see mine. I have Wicked Horse up there and I have
Oh,
Jameson.
do you ever read Sugar Rush?
Yes, that is one of the best dark romance trilogies
Oh,
ever.
love it.
I tell people that all the time. I'm like, that is dark romance, like done so well, and the audiobooks are really great on that series.
Sugar Daddy. Like this one was
Yeah.
really good. It's one of my favorites.
I love her books. She's a big fan of the podcast, and she and Lisa
It
hang out with
seems,
us awesome, often. Yeah.
I'll tell you a story about Sawyer, and this is why I just think that she's just an amazing human being. Is that when I had my first signing, like I think it was like in 2015, her table was next to me, and I had written maybe like 3 books. I mean, I'm about ready to piss myself because I'm so scared. I'm at a signing and I have no idea what's going on. And Sawyer Bennett is sitting there next to me, and she was just the nicest person I've ever met in my entire life. And she was so nice and she was so helpful. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Until this day, I'm always like, Sawyer Bennett, that is a great human being. Like,
Yes.
and I'll
Class
not at
act.
the moment where like this, like feeling out, this book just hit me. I'll just never forget that she was just like made my whole entire experience like so much better because she was so kind to me and so
Yeah.
helpful, you know?
Yep. I'm there with you. I feel that. Um. Okay, so before we find out what we're gonna do next or what's next for you, I want to remind everybody you can follow Jessica. All the links are either on our website at bookcaseandcoffee.com, but they're also in the description of this video. You can also, if you go over to the bookcaseandcoffee.com or buzzingaboutromance.com, make sure you sign up for our newsletter. And we will be back next Wednesday with author Erin Nicholas. Um,
Ooh,
she's another really super nice human. Like super nice
I can
human.
watch that one.
Um, okay, so tell everybody power they can get right now, wherever you get
Yeah.
books. It's available, it's out there. What is
Yeah.
next?
What is next? Oh, great question. So I'm thinking it's going to be a toss up actually because originally like I said it was going to be Brady's book, and Brady's book is a full package romance. It is a spin-off of a character from Enemies with Benefits. To me that one, or it's going to be Mindy's book. So Mindy is the side character in Power. It is Faye's best friend. I'm kind of rocking that out, so it depends on we are looking like the next release will be an August release.
Okay.
Just depends on, it'll be a surprise and what I get done first.
Well, and I heard you say you'll be at Windy in the City. So if anybody is watching this and you are headed to Windy in the City in Chicago for Mother's Day, make sure you stop and say hi to
Please
Jessica.
do. I would
Um,
love that.
Congratulations on your release day.
Too.
Thank you so much for joining us here at Happy Hour. We were pleased to have you as a guest
Thanks. I had a great time.
anytime. And until next time, everyone, happy reading.